Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Adam.
And today we are talking about Killers of the Flower Moon. What else would we be talking about?
I mean, it's the newest, best, greatest, longest movie to come out.
Taylor Swift Eras Tour, potentially.
Yeah, and how crazy that's been at the theaters.
Yeah, that's been nuts. But we have a real movie here for you, one that's been, I mean, it's not a...
I know, I was giving you shit.
Yeah. One that's been long anticipated by myself, by you, by the entire movie watching community, and pretty much a lot of people who read this book. So, Adam, what is Killers of the Flower Moon all about?
When oil is discovered in 1920s Oklahoma under Osage Nation land, the Osage people are murdered one by one until the FBI steps in to unravel the mystery.
Yes. So, based on the best-selling book by David Grann, which came out a while ago, I want to say like 8 to 10 years ago at this point. It's been a bit. I did read the book about 5 or 6 years ago, and pretty much ever since there was a rumor that Scorsese wanted to make this movie, I've really been looking forward to it. So I guess we can just start there. Did this live up to the hype for you?
I want to say yes. I still haven't seen The Irishman, which is Scorsese's last like long epic movie about, historical subject with very important characters and people, names and stuff you would know.
That's a little more fictionalized, or there are more liberties taken with The Irishman. Lots of kind of like, there's a rumor that this person did this, so let's put it in the movie.
So let's make it a reality. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So in the regards,
is much more grounded in like
reality.
They're trying to be pretty much as real as possible here.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know didn't know what to expect from a like pacing standpoint and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For the length, but I thought it was really good. So I think it lived up to expectations by and large. The people I went with after the fact, basically the only thing we said was, okay, that was really long.
Yeah.
So
it's long for sure, and you can feel it. It's 3.5 hours, and I'm not generally someone who, I'm aware that there are a lot of long movies out there, and sometimes I just kind of, because I watch so many, it's nicer when they're shorter because then it's easier to watch more.
Yeah, well, you hit an hour and a half movie, you're like, oh, I didn't do anything.
Right, but if it's really good, I'm not somebody who says like, well, that was really good, but I wish it were shorter. I will say for me, this didn't quite live up to the hype.
Okay.
I didn't dislike it by any means, but I went into this with about as high of expectations as I've had going into a movie in a really long time.
Okay.
And there's also just, like you said, it's long. There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Like, it's overwhelming at times. I do want to watch this again. My initial reaction was that it was a like, not love.
That's fair.
There's kind of a chunk in the middle of the movie when Lilly Gladstone's character is, without spoiling anything, not as front and center in the story as she is for the first, I want to say, like at least 90 minutes, probably closer to like 2 hours of it.
Yeah.
And there's a part in the middle that felt very repetitive to me, where we get a lot of just kind of De Niro scheming and DiCaprio just sort of looking conflicted and scared and guilty.
Yeah, and like trying to do his own stuff.
Yeah, and that started to wear on me a bit just because it kind of felt like it's more about, any issue I have with this movie is more kind of around the decisions that were made on like how to tell the story versus the actual execution once those decisions had been made. The acting's really good. The score is phenomenal. It's filmed incredibly well. Like all the production design and everything it's fantastic.
Costuming was great.
Right. I just reached a point where I started to think like, is this really kind of the direction I want this to go? And this is stuff that really happened, but we reach a point where it kind of feels similar to where this is framed similarly to other Scorsese movies, which are kind of almost him taking his main character and making him do worse and worse things until it's almost like Scorsese exploring how far can this guy go before he cannot be forgiven for this.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of that in a lot of Scorsese movies. That's kind of one of the things he really likes to explore. It's entirely what The Irishman's about. Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, Silence. Departed to an extent, though that's not quite as centered on that type of stuff
Yeah,
as
it's a little
some
bit
of the other
different.
movies. But it just kind of reaches a point where I was thinking like, okay, this is a believable quandary that this main character or one of the co-leads, DiCaprio's character, Ernest Burkhart, is in, and kind of framing a lot of this around like, is it possible for him to have loved his wife and done these things at the same time?
Yeah.
And I think that's not that that's uninteresting and not an interesting question to ask and kind of talk about, but it kind of I'm very conflicted with this because it felt to me like, is this the best way to tell this? I think probably not. But at the same time, is this the best way for Scorsese to tell this? And the answer to that is maybe.
Yeah.
Because
Leaning towards yes.
He's not part of the Osage community.
Mm-hmm.
So something 100% from that perspective might have felt a little disingenuous.
For sure.
But then focusing so much on the villains of this story also just feels a little bit like there's more around the edges here that we're not really scraping.
Yeah.
And so if I sound kind of, I don't know, wishy-washy about some of this, it's because I am. It's because it's a really long movie and I have conflicting feelings about it. And that's absolutely why I want to watch it again. But for now, after a first viewing, I'd say Lily Gladstone completely lived up to all the hype I'd heard about her performance. Phenomenal.
Absolutely.
The acting's great. Everything looks amazing. Everything is technically done as well as you could possibly want it. There are just some decisions that I haven't quite made up my mind yet on how the story was told and kind of the perspectives that are given more time than some others.
I'd agree with that. I think not that this movie suffers from anything, because I wouldn't say it's bad in any respect, but it almost suffers from the fact that it was a Scorsese movie and we expect such a high quality out of him. And because all of his movies are such a high quality that I wouldn't say it's boring, but maybe we're not used to like it being like they're all good. They're all high quality in every aspect. So where do you poke the holes? What is the issue with the story? Where is this? Because it doesn't feel as good and as great as say like The Departed. It doesn't feel as good and as great as it does some of his other ones.
So I have a theory on that.
Okay.
And that's because even despite telling stories about often despicable people doing despicable things, most of Scorsese's movies are fun.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
And this one's not. And it's not trying to be, nor should it.
No, should it be?
I mean,
no.
There's the occasional, like, kind of, you can laugh at people when they're being stupid a little bit.
Yeah.
And there are some fun moments in kind of when, like, Lily Gladstone and her interactions with De Niro's character early on are kind of amusing. But there's not, like, an excitement to it. And again, that's not supposed to be there. This isn't Goodfellas with kind of Henry Hill's waxing poetic and nostalgic about, like, the good old life.
Yeah.
This isn't Wolf of Wall Street where he's kind of like shoving your face in the excess, although it kind of still feels fun to you. And you have to kind of
look at this,
catch yourself being like, God, these people suck, but man, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
This is just horrible in every respect. And it should be, but that makes it tough because we are focusing on the villains for so much of the runtime, particularly in the second half of the movie. And then we do get this point where Jesse Plemons shows up, honestly, like maybe 2 hours in.
I think it's actually like
as the FBI. And then that was where
it's late.
That was where I kind of, particularly there, we don't really get the perspective of the FBI very much. And that would have been fine with me had we gotten more perspective from the Osage characters.
Yeah.
But to kind of back off the perspective of the FBI just to focus more on like Leo and De Niro doing their like cover everything up for an hour thing. Not that that shouldn't be there at all, but it kind of felt like if we're going to lose out on some of the intrigue of that side of the story, maybe not spend all of that borrowed time then with Leo and De Niro. And so that's just kind of mostly my biggest thing with this is are we in those characters' shoes more than we need to be?
And I think that's a good question to ask. And I think the answer is probably yes. I mean, it's 3.5 hours long. You can only spend so much time. Like there's a lot more character development, not even development's the wrong word, but character time in other movies that moves faster, it moves better than this. I will say with the runtime, and we do spend, an hour, each act is roughly an hour just over. You get the full scope of like how not deranged, but how deep this goes. You get a full effect of how like the grief that is felt, the scale at which this is being done. All of that is not lost in this movie. You definitely feel the weight of all of these things coming down. And it hurts, and that's the point. But that doesn't mean, like you're saying, it doesn't mean it's exciting. It doesn't mean it's like you want to always be invested in it. I don't think it lags at any point, really. I think
the pacing is great.
For it being 3.5 hours, the pacing's phenomenal. There's like a little, it's like a heartbeat, but it kind of just like there's a little this and there's a little that, and then like there's no peaks and valleys. It's just a nice, gentle. There's a couple moments like Leo DiCaprio when he gets when him and his wife, and I'm gonna forget her name, Molly, get together when he starts driving her in the taxi. Like that's a fun moment, but it's it's pretty short. But like that's one of your highs. One of your lows. We won't talk about that because there's quite
lots
a bit.
of them that come up abruptly too.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting way that violence is depicted in this movie, where
it's almost casual,
right? And I think that's the way that these people treated it, because for a long time there just weren't consequences. I do want to focus on. I mean, I sort of, we took this time to kind of tackle the one part where I'm still processing and making up my mind, but there are some things that are done very well in this movie that I want to make sure we hit on.
Sure.
I loved the ending. I think that's something that I've seen. I haven't seen a negative take on the ending yet, but every time I read about the ending or listen to a podcast about it or something, people mention like this could be polarizing.
Okay.
I haven't seen the other side of that polarity yet.
Okay.
But it could be there. But for me, I thought that was phenomenal and just a genius decision. And then I really like early in the movie the way that Scorsese recreates old photographs with like the actors in it as like part of the introduction of the movie. Mm-hmm. I thought that was brilliant and did a great job of immersing us into the world, which is so well recreated.
Yeah.
And then again, I just can't glow enough about Lilly Gladstone. I mean, it sounds like it's kind of a 2-horse race between her and Emma Stone for Best Actress this year. Okay. And I haven't seen Poor Things yet. Lilly Gladstone setting the bar really high.
Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, obviously, we'll see what Poor Things has. I don't want to say there's not much to do, but because this isn't as an exciting of a movie as I guess maybe we were anticipating, or as some people are anticipating, people are going to feel potentially let down by Lilly Gladstone. But when you watch it, like she is all of the grief, she is all of the pain,
she's the heart and soul of the movie.
She's everything in this movie, and that's you cannot understate how well it's done.
There's a moment. And I feel fine bringing this up because it's in the trailer when she's on the stairs and she gets the news about the most recent tragedy. I won't say which one it is, but that scene is in the trailer. Her reaction there just brought me to tears. And it was the only moment in the movie that pushed me that far.
Yeah. Well,
just because
it's a tough moment.
So much. It is a tough movie, but so much of it is just kind of, usually if I'm going to tear up during a movie, there's almost like a level of sort of surprise, or kind of it reaches an emotional point that I wasn't quite prepared for. Yeah, whereas with most of this movie, it's preparing you for it the whole way. It's like you said, it's just kind of a slow descent and you just kind of feel worse as it goes and more helpless.
Yeah.
But that one, just the anguish and the heartbreak that she was able to portray there was, oh my God. That I think will be shown a lot. It's fantastic. She's brilliant. I'm really excited for people to see her because I think she's amazing in Kelly Reichardt's Certain Women, which is a different kind of movie, but one that I think is really good. And she's really good in her cameo role in Reservation Dogs as well. So a lot of people getting to see her is really exciting. Do you have anything else, or should we dive into the stars?
Yeah, the last thing we already touched on, I was going to say, is the costuming was great.
Yeah,
I really wanted to point that out. And the world building was cool. Them just even driving around and showing how much wealth is there is really, really well done. Showing the expanse of the oil fields and that sort of stuff. That was all really, really well done. And I just you don't always get that. Some people it's just like, oh, we're set in a small town in like Oklahoma in the 20s. And you're like, okay, so what does that mean? You
Right.
get to see it from like when they discover oil, basically, to ooh, now it's a little city, to now it's like it's a place, it's a big town. So I just really wanted to point that out. But yeah, we can get to the stars if we're ready. So
yeah,
we'll be right back.
Okay. Right. I can go first.
Sure.
For me, I'm going to settle on a 3.5 on this for now.
Sounds about right.
With the full intention of watching this again. It's hard for me to go higher when there's still kind of a big part of the movie that I don't know how I feel about it yet. But
yeah,
it's
that's fair.
So well made and so well acted that it's just really well put together. So that's kind of the area though that at this moment is keeping me from calling it great, but I'm still in the very good range.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm gonna go with 4 stars because of the quality of the production and because of the acting and because I mean the story itself is phenomenal. It's tragic but phenomenal. I like certain aspects they touched on, like they throw in like, oh, this reminds me of Tulsa, which like a lot of those things were sprinkled into the movie are very great additions. The overall story I think needs to be told, and I actually, after we got out of the movie, I was like, this would be a great double feature with Wind River, unfortunately. But both fantastic movies. I just think the overall quality here is there. Again, you do not feel the runtime necessarily because it doesn't necessarily lag. But you'll notice that you're sitting down.
Like I've been here for a while.
Yeah, I haven't moved and my legs fell asleep. But yeah, I think 4 stars, and I think everything that you've said as far as like maybe having an issue with this or an issue with that, I think that's all completely warranted.
I do want to mention Dylan couldn't make it to this episode, but he asked us to mention that he also gives this 4 stars. He said this is his favorite Scorsese movie since The Departed, which is my favorite Scorsese movie. So I guess I did want to ask you before we go, kind of where does this, not necessarily a number, but like, is this top tier, mid tier, lower tier Scorsese for you? Kind of where are you at?
I think I'd put this as like upper mid tier. I don't want to, it's good. I think again, it suffers from being not fun like a lot of his other movies, but that's not necessarily a critique. You know what I mean? Because it's a different type of story.
It's just because so many of his movies just fall into that insanely rewatchable category.
Yeah.
And this is not necessarily that.
Yeah, like that guy's a dirtbag, but God, is he fun to watch? Like in Goodfellas and Into the Departed, and this, and it's
Wolf
like
of Wall Street,
Wolf of Wall Street. Here it's like that guy's a dirtbag, and I hope he gets what's coming to him. And sometimes that can be not as fun to rewatch.
For me, this fell more into the tier along with like Silence and Gangs of New York, movies that I think are really good, but I don't love.
Yeah.
So kind of, I'd guess, I think the top of the mid tier is probably a good way to put this for me.
Yeah, that's where I'd put it. Anything else that you wanted to mention? I suppose.
I think that's it.
So I'm good too. 4 stars from me, 4 stars from Dylan, 3.5 from Nate. Definitely go check this out.
I do think it's good to see in the theater. Even though it is really long, it's just incredible to look at. The sound is also great.
Oh my God.
So if you got the time, this is a big screen movie for sure.
Yeah. How uneasy the score makes you feel all the time.
Yes.
Is the tension that's there while like it doesn't seem like much is happening on screen. Is just it's nerve-wracking for sure. So yeah. I believe it's my turn to put a wrap on the show.
It is. Take it away.
If I've said it once, I said it 1,000 times. I don't care they're Irish. I don't care they're Catholic. If there's one person you can't trust in this life, it's millionaires' kids.